So last time we talked about how we could do loop analysis using induction variables. We introduced induction variables informally, but today we're going to look at induction variables in a more formal way. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to define an induction variable. So an induction variable is a variable whose value can be expressed as C1 into I plus C0, where I is the count of iterations through the closest enclosing loop, and C1 and C0 are constants with respect to that particular closest enclosing loop. So in other words, this particular variable, the induction variable, can be expressed as an affine expression over the loop iteration count, the count of iterations through the loop that the loop has already executed. What is the count of iterations? It's basically the number of times the head has been visited since the entry of the loop, right? Maybe the loop is being entered multiple times and we are only counting since the last entry of the loop, right? And so that's the loop iteration count for that particular invocation of that loop or that particular entry of the loop. And so our problem statement is find variables that are affine expressions of loop indices and also find loop invariant variables. Notice that loop invariant variables are just a special case of induction variables, because loop invariant variables are variables where one of the constants is 0. The multiplier to I is 0, and so it becomes a loop invariant variable. And the way we're going to do this, we're going to solve this problem is by formulating this as a bottom-up region-based analysis, and that's what we have been discussing all along. So for example, we are going to first formulate the transfer function of the loop body in our region-based analysis, and we know how to do that. We are going to summarize the transfer functions of basic blocks, and based on that we are going to summarize the transfer function of the entire loop body. And then I'm going to use it to formulate the transfer function for the loop, and the loop is just the addition of the back edge or back edges to the loop body, and I'm going to have some way of saying what should if the loop body's transfer function is f, then what should be the entire loop's transfer function. The analysis would try and express variables in terms of loop iteration indices and loop invariant variables, and so we have already seen this before. Now, how do I basically do the summarization for the entire loop? And that's what going to be the rest of the discussion in the module. And transfer functions of a statement. So let's talk about what would be the transfer function of a statement. Let f be the transfer function of a statement x equals c0 plus c1 into y plus c2 into z. So let's say there is some statement like this. In a 3-address code, you may say, how can there be two variables y and z? Or maybe C0 should be 0, but I'm just taking the general case, assuming that there are 3 additions and 2 multiplications in a single statement. You can even kind of think of this as a compound statement that has 2 or more statements, but this is probably the summary transfer function, summary statement, and we're going to identify the summary transfer function of this combined statement. Now in this case, this is how my transfer function f will be defined. The function takes an input map m and returns an output map m prime, and we're going to specify what m prime is going to look like in terms of what m looks like. And that's easy. For each variable v in the program, if v is not equal to x, then it remains unchanged, and that's specified by saying m prime v equals mv if v is not equal to x. M prime v equals c0 plus c1 into my plus c2 into mz. Just taking this here and just replacing y with my and z with mz. If v equals x and my is not equal to unknown and mz is not equal to unknown. So recall, in this analysis we have a semi-lattice of finite height, and the bottom value here is the unknown value. And so if my evaluates to the unknown value, then we don't really use this expression. But if my does not evaluate to an unknown value, and similarly mz does not evaluate to an unknown value, in which case it is evaluating to some expression, then it's basically the new expression would be formed by this expression c0 plus c1 into my plus c2 into mz. Notice that we are only talking about affine expressions. If the original expression my and mz were affine expressions, this combined total expression is also going to be an affine expression. And finally, the third case is otherwise. Otherwise would include the case which is v equals x and either my or mz are unknown. in which case I just say that v is also unknown, or mv or mx is also unknown. Now, that is just the transfer function of a single statement. Now, to be able to do my region-based analysis, recall that we need to specify the composition operator, the meet operator, and the closure operator to be able to generate summary transfer functions of larger regions from smaller regions. And the leaf level here is a single statement, and we just saw what the transfer function of a single statement is. Now, using that, we want to construct transfer functions of larger regions. And for that, we first need the composition operator for the transfer functions. And so recall that the composition operator is f1 composed with f2. So let f1 and f2 be the transfer functions of statements or regions s1 and s2. Then f1 composed with f2 of m is nothing but first apply f1 to m, and on the result you apply f2. And this is also going to be consistent with our affineness relation, because if f1 is going to give out an affine expression, a map which has affine mappings, then f2 will also give out a map which is going to be have only affine mappings. So here is an example of composition. So let's say I have a statement S1 which has some statement, and then I have S2 which has the same statement that we saw earlier, x equals C0 plus C1y plus C2z. And if I want to say what is the combined transfer function in terms of f1 and f2, so f1 is the transfer function of s1 and f2, let's say, is the transfer function of s2. Then I want to define what is f1 composed with f2, and to define that I'm going to say if the input is m, what is the output. So if the input is m, what is m prime in terms of m? And let me just assume that m1 is equals f1m. Alright, so for the same m, if I give it to f1, then it gives me m1. And so the composition is nothing, nothing out of the ordinary. We just use the same thing for each variable v. M prime v is now just that instead of mv, I'm using m1v, because m1 is the result of applying f1. If v is not equal to x, similarly c0 plus c1 into m1y instead of my plus c2 into m1z. If v equals x and m1y is not equal to unknown and m1z is not equal to unknown, otherwise it's unknown. Alright, and we can now substitute for m1 similarly. So example m1, we can now substitute the same expression, whatever it f1 has in, we can substitute m1v in terms of f1 and m, just like that. And this is just the composition as we already know it. The other thing that we need to define is the meet of the two functions. What happens if there are two regions that basically have a join point, what should be the transfer function of the larger region? And that's expressed as f1 meet f2. So let m1 be f1m and let m2 be f2m. Then m prime, I want to define what is f1 meet f2, and I'm going to define that using an input m and then specifying m prime, which is the output in terms of m. And so here it's actually also easy. We say for each variable v, m prime v would be equal to mv, so this should be mv, not m1v. Sorry, this can be m1v, sorry. And this can be m prime v equals m1v if m1v equals m2v, and it's unknown otherwise. Alright, so what does it mean? If the two functions give the same output for the variable, so if m1v equals m2v, the outputs of the two transfer functions m1 and m2 gave the same answer for the variable v, then that's the answer that will be given for, that will be used for f1 meet f2. Right? Recall, basically this is f1's answer and this is f2's answer. And in a way, this is basically saying I want to take an intersection, that if they basically have the same value, then use that value, and if they have different values or either of them is an unknown value, then you just use unknown. Okay, and so this is just the meet operator of the transfer functions. Actually, there's nothing spectacular here either. The meet of the functions is basically similar to the meet of the values using set intersection, as you typically do for available expressions. Finally, the interesting part of this whole formulation, which is the closure of the transfer function. Recall that for region-based analysis like the induction variable analysis, I want to summarize the transfer function of the entire loop based on the transfer function of the body of the loop, and that's where the closure function is going to help us. The closure is going to say, what happens if I just compose f with itself n number of times or an arbitrary number of times. And so given fb, which is the loop body's transfer function, we want to identify the value for each induction variable at the beginning of an iteration, of the ith iteration, let's say, and the value of the variable after an unknown number of iterations, right? So I want to identify two things in my induction variable analysis. One is, what is the value of every variable after a known number of iterations, let's say I number of iterations, and what is the value of every variable after an unknown number of iterations, where we can't really say how many iterations have already elapsed. And to do that, I'm going to basically define, that this is going to be a part of my closure. And so if I have fb, then I'm going to define fb to the power I of m0. So m0 is the input map at the beginning of the first iteration of the loop. M1 is the map at the end of the first iteration of the loop, and the fb is basically relating m0 with m1, because that's the transfer function of one invocation of the loop body. Now, once I have this information, I want to, given such an fb, I want to construct fl, which is the loop's transfer function, and so that's what it's going to look like. I'm going to define fb to the power I of m0, and that's just fb composed with fb to the power I minus 1 of m0. And then I'm going to define fb star, which is for unknown number of iterations. So fb to the power I is the value of the variables after a known number of iterations, I number of iterations, and fb star is the values of the variables after an unknown number of iterations. All right. Notice that this star and this star, the closure star, are two different things. Here I'm using the star operator to represent the fact that this is an unknown number of iterations. Here I'm using the star to represent that this is a closure of the transfer function. This whole thing is the closure of a transfer function. This will be used. This whole thing will be used to define the closure of the transfer function for an induction variable analysis. So what would the closure look like? Well, once again, it's not going to be something unexpected. If I have m1v equals m0v, so the iteration of one loop basically preserves the value of a variable v, then even after I minus 1 iterations, I'm going to get mi minus 1v equals m0v. So I'm using the subscript to represent how many iterations have elapsed. So if after one iteration the expression for the variable is identical, then after I minus 1 iterations also the expression for the variable would be identical. This basically means that the variable v was a loop invariant variable. And in fact, also m star v would be equal to m0, where m star v represents the value of a variable after an unknown number of iterations. It's a loop invariant variable. Even if we don't know how many iterations have elapsed, we can be sure that the value of the variable would be the same as at the entry of the loop. Now, that was the loop invariant variable case. What if m1v is equals m0v plus some constant c? And these type of variables are called basic induction variables. The reason they are called basic induction variables is because there is no multiplier to m0. The multiplier for m0 is only 1. And so these are called basic induction variables. And if I have such a transfer function for some variable for the loop body, inside the loop body, then for I minus 1 iterations, I can say that mi minus 1v would be m0v plus whatever is the constant c multiplied by the number of iterations, in this case I minus 1. Okay, and m star v, unknown number of iterations, the answer would simply be unknown, because the number of iterations is unknown, and so we don't know how much to multiply c with, and so the answer for m star v will be unknown. Now that was after the end of the I minus 1th iteration, or at the beginning of the ith iteration. What about during the ith iteration? During the ith iteration, I'm going to see what is, let's say my transfer function for a certain statement is c0 plus summation ck of, so it's something like, let's say c0 plus c1 into x1 plus c2 into x2, but actually it's not x1 m2, I want to say m0 x1 and m0 x2, and this is the transfer function of the loop body. Right? Recall that when the example that we discussed last time, these m0s can accumulate. So for example, m0 is representing the value of m0 x1 is representing the value of x1 at the beginning of the iteration. And if you've been manipulating x1, then m0 x1 can be different from the current value of x1. And based on that, you would have identified the transfer function for a loop body in some of this form. For example, you could have said C0 plus C1 into M0x1. For example, C0 plus 2 into M0x1 plus 3 into M0x2 and so on, right? Something like that. And so that I'm representing as C0 plus summation over K Ck M0 Vk, right? So V is some variable, C is some constant, and I'm summing over K. But I'm only doing this, I'm only considering the case where Vk's are loop invariant variables. So let's only look at those statements where the value V is actually, after that particular statement, is basically given by summation Ck M0 Vk, where all the V's are loop invariant. That's one component of this of this requirement. The other component of the requirement is it's possible that it has more variables which are not loop invariant, of the type summation j cj m0 vj, but those vj's need to be basic induction variables. All right, and what are basic induction variables? They need to have a transfer function for the loop body which looks like m1 vj equals m0 vj plus some constant capital Cj. I want to point out here that this is capital C and this is small c, and so this capital Cj is different from this small cj. Now, if my transfer function looks like this, that it is only made up of, it's an affine expression over loop invariant variables and basic induction variables with some constant multipliers Ck's and Cj's, then I can basically use this to compute a summary transfer function for the entire loop using MIV, which is after I iterations of the loop. It's going to be C0 plus summation over K Ck M0 Ck. So this part here remains identical because these are all the loop invariant variables. Vk's, recall, are the loop invariant variables, plus summation Cj, but instead of M0 Vj, I'll have M0 Vj plus capital Cj into I minus 1. All right, so this is after, this is at the end of the statement I, and so already I have I minus 1 iterations have elapsed. And so instead of M0, I want to basically substitute Mi minus 1 here. And for Mi minus 1, I get basically know what is the expression. It is M0 plus Cj into I minus 1. Right? Because we know it's a basic induction variable. And so for basic induction variables, I know what should be the value at the end of the I minus 1th iteration at the beginning of the loop. And so that is, so this whole thing, let me just write it, is Mi minus 1 of Vj. All right, so that's what I have expanded here, and so from this I can compute this summary for Mi. Now what about M star in this case? Well, for M star I won't be able to say anything, and so I'll just say unknown otherwise. So even for M star, or if it is true that I cannot represent the transfer function of V as a summation of only loop invariant and basic induction variables, even then my analysis is going to just say that it is unknown. Now, no, of course, this is the conservative answer. Unknown is always a conservative answer. You may say, oh, why restrict ourselves to only basic induction variables? Why not also allow other induction variables? And in which case I would have had to basically also have a multiplier effect. For example, I could have said that, just keep raising it to a power because I'm multiplying, and so if I accumulate the multiplication for I minus 1 iterations, it's like saying that I have an exponent of I minus 1 on that multiplier. It's just that, I'm just describing an analysis where I'm ignoring such things, and it's always okay to do that. I'm going to lose some precision, but it's not going to be incorrect because it's a conservative analysis. I'm just ignoring some things, and which basically means I'm giving an unknown answer in cases where it may have been possible to give a known answer. We are going to discuss in the next module examples of analyses that generalize this idea to more types of patterns, including induction variables that are not necessarily basic. Alright, what about an unknown number of iterations? For the previous case, if there were some basic induction variables present inside the loop body's transfer function, then I would just use unknown. But if I have a case where the loop body's transfer function maps V to C0 plus summation over K Ck M0 Vk, where all the Vk's are loop invariant, which means that there is no basic induction variable in this affine expression. They're only loop invariant variables, in which case even after an unknown number of iterations, I would be able to say that m star v equals c0 plus summation over k ck m0 vk. So what have I done? Using the transfer function of a single iteration, which is the loop body's transfer function, I have given you rules to construct the transfer function of the entire loop, and not just when I do that, I have basically specified what is the transfer function for I iterations of a loop, for a known number of iterations I of the loop, and what is the transfer function for an unknown number of iterations of the loop. When I am constructing the summary transfer function for the entire loop, I have been conservative, using unknown values wherever I cannot be sure. But for some common patterns, for some patterns which I can use algebraic properties of addition and multiplication, for example, I can just use these rules to compute my summary transfer function, as I have shown in this particular rule. If I didn't use these summary transfer functions, if I just used the basic data flow analysis, the vanilla data flow analysis, I would have got unknown everywhere. And so that is the value that this analysis is adding to our framework. Here are some applications of induction variable analysis. We have already seen strength reduction. So if I was able to identify that j equals 3 into I, where I is the loop count, then I can replace multiplication with addition. Also, we can do the inverse. If I have some loop carried dependencies, for example, I have sum equals sum plus 3, and so the second iteration requires the result of the first iteration. So whatever is the value of sum in the previous iteration, I need it to be able to compute the value of sum in the new iteration. But using our induction variable analysis, I was able to figure out that sum will be equal to 3 into I, where I is the number of iterations that I've executed. And using this, I can actually do a parallel for loop, and I can implement loop parallelization. And so that's a great win, right? So in many ways, strength reduction was going in the opposite direction. For parallelization, I want to express the variables in terms of the loop iteration variables, and for strength reduction, I just want to reduce the strength and eliminate multiplication as much as possible. The loop parallelization is a very important application of induction variable analysis. Finally, there are several other loop transformations, including polyhedral transformations, that are enabled by such a induction variable analysis, because it gives you more information about how the variables are evolving as the loop iterations proceed.